This is AccuSizer software training on data calculations. First, let's open a result within the Sample Explorer. And here's the graph for that particular result. As we look down below the sample name, we see this icon for data calculations. When we open it, we see various things we can change about our calculations for this result and the way the results are graphed. The first thing we see is the number of channels. If we reduce the number of channels from 1024, say down to 128, and whenever we make a change here, we want to click on the green check sign here. Then when we look at this result again, it may make more sense. It may be more aesthetically pleasing because we don't have the very small histogram bands popping up. We're currently looking at counts per mil versus size. If we switch the units over to volume versus size, this could be interesting, but it's hard to interpret because a few large particles are heavily weighing the distribution out to the largest sizes. We can come into data calculations again and change the baseline offset number. If I change this from 0 to 3, then any histogram channels with fewer than 3 counts in it will not be included in the results or in the chart. So if I enter 3 in baseline offset and click on check, then come back and look at this result, we can now more easily see that the volume distribution is bimodal, with a peak at around 0.7 and a peak at around 5 microns. Okay, we'll change these units back to counts per mil versus size. And if we come back over to data calculations again, let's look at the other changes we can make here. The first one we see is size threshold. Currently we're showing all the counts greater than 0.5 microns, but we could alter this. If we were only interested in sizes greater than 0.6 microns, we could enter that value, click check, and now when we look at the result, we'll see the lowest threshold size is now 0.6 microns. Back into data calculations, and we'll change that back to the default of 0.5 for the LE400 sensor. If we pre-diluted the sample and forgot to enter that information into our protocol, we could alter that here, and then the calculations would work back towards the actual concentration in the original sample. The next two sections we see here, PFAT5 and USP788, are specific for calculations for tests used in the pharmaceutical industry. If we are doing USP729 testing and we want to do the PFAT5 calculation, we can enter yes here and input the volume weight percent of the fat concentration and the oil density, and then we could use the automated USP729 reports. If we're doing small volume parenteral testing, we could enter the volume per container and the number of containers used in order to be able to create the USP788 automated reports. The last thing we can do here in data calculations is make an alteration to the calibration curve. Here we see the calibration curve that was used for the result we have currently looked at. If we made a mistake and perhaps we used an older calibration curve, we could come in here and update the calibration curve, and then click check OK. And now when we look at the result again, this calculation will be based on the new and hopefully proper calibration curve. We see down here the details of the calibration curve if we're trying to sort out if there was an error or not. Remember, the last thing we always do is click the apply green check, and then the modifications will be made to the existing result. We can also come over here and restore the original data calculations by clicking on this icon.